Well, good morning. I hope your day is off to a good start. I'm glad you chose to spend part of it with us. One of the positive changes that has occurred in our society over the years is the effort to focus on people's abilities rather than disabilities. We're going to talk about that right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, this morning we're going to be talking about an organization whose mission statement says they are dedicated to helping people recognize and maximize their abilities, overcome barriers, and support them in reaching their highest level of employment and community inclusion. That organization is Lake State Industries, serving Delta and Marquette counties. This morning we'll learn more about how they carry out that mission as we talk with Lake State's Executive Director, Cheryl Oman. Cheryl, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Don.
Let's talk a little more about the mission. Spell it out more for people. What is it you're trying to accomplish?
Well, ultimately, it's all about giving employment opportunities to people with disabilities. And some people have the ability to gain work skills and get a job out in the community. Other people might struggle with that, and so we actually have 2 different work centers where they can work right on site, and we teach them daily work skills and how to work and how to be productive and earn a paycheck.
Okay, and we'll talk more about that, but you know, this organization has a long history.
That's right. In Escanaba, we've been around since 1969. There was a group of parents who had children with disabilities and thought, you know, what are we going to do now that they're getting close to graduating from school, and started Lake State Industries. It was called Delta Rehab back in 1969.
Okay.
Eventually changed the name to Lake State Industries in the 70s, and just recently now, Marquette.
And I can recall something, I think it was called Sheltered Workshop, or it may have, the name may have changed several times. That goes back to the 60s or 70s as well in Marquette County?
That's correct. That was, you know, many times these kind of organizations were called sheltered workshops. We kind of try to stay away from that name now. But yes, there was the Marquette Work Center, and Lake State was considered a sheltered workshop also.
And that kind of went out of business, but then your organization helped bring it back into business, if that's the right word?
Well, kind of, sort of. The Marquette Work Center was ran and operated by Pathways Community Mental Health, and they decided a number of years ago that they were going to close it. And then when I started at Lake State as the executive director in 2008, I started getting phone calls from parents up here saying, can't we do this up here? And took a little bit, but we got some people on the right page, and actually Pathways was very instrumental in helping us get started up here.
Now your name, you know, makes it sound almost like a commercial endeavor, but this is really a nonprofit organization, right?
That is correct. We are a private nonprofit, 501c3.
How are you governed?
We're governed by a board of directors.
Okay.
So we have a board of directors that are in Escanaba, and then we also have an advisory board in Marquette.
Okay. And so the 2 locations kind of function separately, but under the one umbrella, is that?
Correct. That's exactly how it works. All of our financials, administration is out of Escanaba, but we have some lead people in Marquette, and they're doing a fine job of keeping things running up here. But we have some staff that are up here a couple times a week usually.
How many people are you serving now as clients, let's say?
Okay, so in Escanaba we have about 150 that we serve, and in Marquette we're at almost 100.
Okay. What kind of staff do you need? It's got to be a big undertaking.
Sure, yeah, we have usually a 1 to 10 staff ratio. So if we have 10 workers with disabilities, we have at least 1 staff. Depending on people's needs, sometimes it might be even a little bit more intense than a 1 to 10 staff ratio, because we want to make sure that our workers are getting the attention they need and the assistance and learning the work skills.
There are several different facets to what you do, and we'll kind of talk about those individually, but I think one of them is training workers to work for other people. Tell us about how that works.
Okay, so we have a program called Community Employment, and our job is to do job development, where we go out and talk to employers and try and match an employer's needs. Maybe they have a job that, let's say it's bagging groceries. We may have somebody that's very interested in bagging groceries. what we can do is actually send a job coach, a staff member that knows that individual and can teach them on the job how to do that job. So ultimately what we're doing at Lake State is trying to teach them all those soft skills, the work-related skills, and then hopefully they get to a level where they can get a job out in the community.
Is there some kind of general training that goes on when you bring someone new into the program? Or?
Well, you know, basically all those work skills that we kind of take for granted. You know, getting back from break on time and getting along with your coworkers and being respectful to your supervisors. All those soft skills that I think a lot of times we as, you know, the general public just kind of take for granted that everybody knows how to do those things. Those are a lot of the things we're teaching, along with work skills, you know, teaching them how to do the actual job.
It sounds like a lot of this is very one-on-one kind of training one person for one job. You're not putting a lot of people in a class and saying, here's how you go out and work.
No, it really is. It's on-the-job training. So they're learning how to stuff a fire starter perhaps, but our goal is also to be teaching them like how to stay on task and how not to get up from your workstation and wander around the workplace or you know, talking too much to a coworker. You know, you want them to stay focused. And
how do you make those matches between companies that need an employee and the employee? How do you make those contacts?
Well, we have a job developer in Escanaba and one in Marquette, and that's their job, is to go out and talk to employers and kind of find out what their needs are, do a needs analysis with the employer, and perhaps they might have a need for somebody that we have somebody that has an interest and the aptitude to do the job.
If there's somebody out there right now, let's say a business or organization watching us, and they think, hey, this might work for me, what's the best thing for them to do?
They can call Lake State either in Escanaba or Marquette, and hopefully we can find an employee that could meet their needs.
Okay. I know there's a lot more to your organization. We're going to find out about that in just a minute. We'll be back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. We're talking with Cheryl Oman from Lake State Industries, talking about the programs they carry out to help people find jobs, people with special needs. We were kind of finishing up with the fact that you work with companies who are looking for employees, but kind of one of the really unique things about your organization is you've created a company to actually create jobs, I think is a fair way to put it.
Yeah, that is kind of silly, doesn't it? It almost sounds kind of strange, but yeah, that's exactly what we do.
Lake State Industries is actually in some businesses, and one of those has to do with providing some services. Let's focus on those first. I know you do document shredding. How does that work out?
So if you have confidential documents that you need to have destroyed, shredded, we can either pick those documents up or you can deliver them to us, and we make sure that they are all shredded, and we're also able to bale that paper and sell that to the paper markets. And then we also make our Uper fire starters out of all the colored paper that comes out of that.
Okay. So here's again a chance where you've created business. You can employ the people you're training to work in these jobs. You provide some jobs, but you also provide a service for the public.
That's right.
Now, I know you also do some like janitorial kind of services. How does that work?
Well, we have, we call them mobile crews that go out. We have some that go out during the day, some that go out in the evening. So for businesses that are looking for janitorial services, we can do all that general cleaning that you need done every night, emptying garbages, vacuuming, dusting, cleaning bathrooms. And we have a number in Marquette as well as in Escanaba.
Okay. Now this must take some extra effort on your organization's part, maybe in some cases to get these people to the job or to supervise them on the job.
That's right. Well, that's the nice thing about our crews that are going out, is that there's always a supervisor that's going out with them. And so they're either transporting them, or sometimes people can get there on their own, but most of the time they have the job coach goes in the van, picks up their workers, and then hits the number of sites. Usually it's 2 or 3 different buildings a night that they're cleaning.
Okay.
And so they're picking their people up and then dropping them off when they're done and doing paperwork, and on to the next day, another day of cleaning.
And again, if people think they may have a need for this service, they just simply contact your
That's right,
organization.
yeah.
One
We
phone
can-
call will get you to the right person.
Absolutely.
You mentioned one thing, but it's kind of interesting that you also do some, I guess, manufacturing. You mentioned the fire starters. Tell us about that, first of all.
Well, so the fire starters started, I don't know, I think about going on 10 years ago probably. And when I started in 2008 as the director, I was like, wow, these things are great. Let's really promote them. And now we have a sales rep that sells them for us all over the country.
Really?
And so we call them Youper fire starters up here, of course, and everybody up here knows what a Youper is, but around the country, people don't know what Youpers are necessarily, and if a campground wants them to be their campground fire starter, we make individualized labels. So Glacier National Park has Glacier National fire starters.
Really?
Yes. Out in Colorado, we have Rocky Mountain fire starters, and down south there's Hillbilly fire starters. So yeah, they get shipped all over the country right now to gift shops and campgrounds and places like that.
And you have the people you've trained working to make these fire. And we should have brought along one or a
We
picture,
should,
I guess, but
yeah.
the picture's online, I know.
Well, it's just an empty toilet paper roll that's filled with shredded paper and dipped in wax. So we are always looking for people to donate used candle wax to us, as well as the empty toilet paper rolls, because all of the product in the fire starter is a recycled product. You know, we're using old candle wax and the empty toilet paper rolls, and then the shredded paper.
And this kind of acts like kindling.
Exactly. I mean, you
process.
you really don't need kindling. You can
Right.
start a fire starter with, you know, decent sized pieces of wood, and your fire will take off. So
This is really, you know, interesting because this is recycling in a sense. You know, you're shredding paper, you're using the paper, you're selling excess paper. It's great.
Right,
You
right.
also are in the business of manufacturing wooden pallets.
that's correct. In Escanaba, we make pallets, but we also make pallet stock, the pieces of the pallet that gets shipped to other pallet manufacturers in the mostly in northeastern Wisconsin. Big pallet manufacturers that put the pieces that we produce in their machines, and they build pallets.
What do you have for a source of supply? Where does the wood come from?
The Bessie mills, all over really the UP, we buy what's called the cant, which is the heart of the log.
Okay.
So it's only really good for pallets or for railroad ties.
Okay.
Because once you take the nice pieces for furniture, flooring, cabinets off that log, you get to that heart, and it doesn't have really any grain left in it. It's strong, but not really meant for builders, so it's great for pallets, and that's where we're buying it from.
And again, it's taking something that may not otherwise have a
That's
use
right.
and
Yep,
creating a use and creating some jobs.
exactly.
Okay, so a few more things I want to talk to you about, but we have to take one more break.
Okay.
Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Our guest this morning is Cheryl Oman from Lake State Industries. She's the executive director. We were talking about some of your manufacturing. We didn't quite finish that. We finished up the pallets, but you also sell wood stakes as well.
That's correct. We also make survey stakes, and actually have quite a few customers in the Marquette area that come down and buy them in Escanaba because they love the quality of the stakes. But yeah, there's stakes get sold probably throughout the UP.
So if anybody needs a pallet or a survey stake, Lake State Industries is
That's
got 'em.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Your branch, your group in Marquette is planning a capital campaign. What's that about?
Well, we're calling it a Building Futures campaign, and it's the money basically is helping us defray the cost of the building that we purchased in Harvey. Used to be the old Marquette Meats building, for those who remember that on M28. We purchased the building and put quite a bit of money into remodeling it so that it was up to all the codes that we needed to be up to, and that was a little more expensive than what we had money put away for. So we're hoping that the Marquette community is generous and will make donations to us to help us pay for that.
Is this campaign underway now, or is this?
Yes, Shelby Bischoff is our business development person in Marquette, and she is kind of heading up the campaign. So people may end up hearing from Shelby, or feel free to give Shelby a call and say, can I come for a tour? Can I learn more? And Shelby can fill you in on all the details of the campaign.
Okay. Are there other organizations like yours in the UP?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Goodwill, there's
Goodwill,
one
yeah.
in the Sioux, there's one in Houghton. It's fairly typical for most major cities to have a place like Lake State Industries.
Really? This
Yeah.
this
Have them all-
model works throughout the country?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
The one thing too is the furniture.
Oh,
We
I was
didn't
going to,
talk-
yeah, we're going to get to that. I noticed that you do have the rustic furniture. Now is this something you make, or is this something you acquire, or how does this?
It's all stuff that we make. We
Really?
started working with a gentleman, and we were actually making furniture for him, and he was selling it to all the wildlife and outdoor organizations, the Wildlife Unlimited, Ducks Unlimited. He was selling it to them for their banquets. And I said, well, let's sell this to everybody. And that's kind of how everything happened. Was we now have a little store called the Rustic Room in Escanaba. Our goal is to have a little store in Marquette. But a lot of the furniture, it's mostly chests or benches or tables. I mean, we're not talking like lazy boy chairs or
Right.
anything, but it's wooden furniture.
Right. And it looks very nice.
Yeah, bookcases. We have a lot of people that really do like our furniture. If somebody has an idea and they say, well, I wonder if you could make that, they'll call us and give us the dimensions of something they want, and we can do some special building for them too.
And again, this provides some work experience, but also some income for your organization.
Absolutely.
The furniture looks very nice. We should mention your website, because there's a lot of information there.
Right.
And I think that's lakestateindustries.org.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
You can find out about services, about products, including a look at some of these furniture items.
Right.
So what's
the deck cooler's been very popular.
the deck cooler?
Yes, that's
Okay.
been probably our biggest seller lately.
Are you able to pretty well fill the need? Are you able to find jobs for everyone who in this category who needs one?
For the most part, yeah. That's the nice thing about all the different jobs we have, is that if somebody doesn't want to work in the wood shop, we also manage the recycling center in Delta County. So they might work up at the recycling center, or they might do janitorial, or they might be making fire starters. So we try and have as many different opportunities. We also stuff envelopes from time to time. So we also will take work in-house if an employer has a job that they need to have done that's somewhat of a repetitive job, like stuffing envelopes. We can do that also. So we subcontract work.
So, and you feel you're able to find enough jobs for the population that's available?
Finding jobs in the community I don't want to say it's an easy thing to do.
Right.
But we have been doing it for many years, and we'll keep, sort of pushing on and talking to as many employers as we can talk to, and try to keep getting jobs for people with disabilities.
Well, I think once you get to know it, it's a fascinating company. It just does so many good things, and it really brings a lot of things together to make this process work. So thanks for coming in and telling us about it.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay. We'll be back with some thoughts on another subject after we take one more break. Well, this morning I want to dip back into my treasure trove of memories from earlier days here at TV6. When you've been around for a while like I have, it's surprising how many things you see come and go. Something arrives with great fanfare, and then one day it's ready for the trash heap. A case in point is videotape, which was a major development that was first introduced and then used on a limited basis in television in the 1950s. When many of you think of videotape, what probably comes to mind is the home VCR on which you played movies, but that's not the way it started. When I arrived here in 1965, the station had just acquired its first videotape machine. It was literally the size of a refrigerator. That's a fact. There was no portability, and the rolls of videotape we used were about 2 inches wide on metal spools that were at least a foot in diameter. Its use was also pretty limited, but that was a management decision. The unit was very expensive to acquire, and I think they were afraid we were going to break it. As a result, it was used mainly for local commercials that required a live announcer. Eventually, it became more available for news and special programs. The big benefits videotape offered for news would come much later, in the 1960s and into the 70s. The only way to get video for news stories in the field was on film, which presented two major problems. It took us an hour to process a roll of film, and the machine wasn't always available. And then there was the editing. That was something else. It was literally a cut and paste method that was difficult and slow. By the 1980s, the era of more portable video equipment had arrived, and that was good news for television news organizations as well as home viewers. By today's standards, the news gathering equipment was bulky and cumbersome, but it was warmly welcomed because it allowed reporters to cover stories in the field and have the video available almost immediately. For those at home, it meant they could now rent and play movies on their VCR and also use the camcorder to shoot family video. While videotape accounted for a major transformation in news gathering, in movie distribution, and in video recording for business and personal uses, by the beginning of this century, there were already signs that new technologies were moving in to replace it. The development of the DVD in the mid-90s produced a major change in the way movies were distributed, but did not have a big impact on news gathering. That change would come a little later with the growing capability of recording directly onto hard drives, SD cards, and built-in video chips. And so today, while there are still some watching movies on VHS tapes, and there may be some news gathering somewhere with equipment that uses tape, it's rapidly moving in a different direction. Videotape isn't gone, but it appears to be heading that way. Is there a moral to this story? It's one I've talked about before. Change is constant, and today it comes much more quickly than it did in the past. When it arrived, videotape was the best thing since sliced bread. Today it's like a piece of stale toast. You can still use it, but do you really want to? I'll be back in 2 minutes. Just about time to wrap it up for another Sunday morning. Before we go, I want to remind you that our show is also available on the internet. Just go to uppermichigansource.com and you'll find the link on the home page. I'm also interested in hearing any thoughts you may want to share with us. Our email address is theryanreport@chesstv.com. Appreciate Cheryl Oman coming in this morning to give us some insights into Lake State Industries. They have a very interesting and worthy mission, and it was good to learn more about it. Today's show is anxious to get started, so we'll get out of their way. Have a great day and join us next Sunday morning.